Giving youth not just a hand out, but a hand in getting a decent education and a fulfilling job. Issues topping the agenda here at the European Parliament. Hello and welcome to People First, the EPP Group's monthly show on issues with immediate impact on people like you. Also on the show, how to reform Europe's Common Agricultural Policy, or CAP, an enduring point of controversy within the EU. We begin with the first of your questions, one that the EPP Group is working hard to address.
Hi, I am Christella Neofitou from Cyprus. A very big problem that the young people are now facing in Europe is the problem of unemployment. I would like to know what are the proposals of the EPP party in order to find solutions for this problem.
It's one of the starkest effects of the crisis, the high rate of joblessness among young people. The figures are staggering, topping 5 million youth in the first quarter of 2009, rising to 5.38 million in April this year before falling back, a potential source of social instability. Driving EPP Group members at the European Parliament to call for action. Thomas Mann of Germany says his country saved youth jobs with short-term aid.
When we had the crisis, the young ones were not kicked out of the jobs. They were integrated there.
Mann suggests the aid could be applied EU-wide to prevent even tougher times for youth.
There should be a guarantee by the people who are responsible for these jobs. Otherwise, we will have a disastrous situation.
The EPP Group, the largest in the Parliament, this year pushed through a widely backed report called an EU Strategy for Youth, Investing and Empowering. Among the measures it calls for, to make it easier for young people to transition from education to training to a full-time job. It recommends an improvement in internships and vocational training so that they really lead to paid positions. The report also notes the risk of a brain drain and the negative consequences for young people's countries of origin, where it says governments should do more job-wise to encourage them to stay. There are still just over 5 million youth out of work, about 20% of the youthful workforce across the EU, rising to as high as 40% in Spain. So while the figures are starting to diminish, the work is far from over.
Joining us to talk about the issues is Georgios Papanikolaou, one of the youngest members of the European Parliament. Georgios, welcome. You are the leader of the Nea Demokratia Youth in Greece and rapporteur for that EU strategy on youth. How much do you think more flexible labour laws could help fight youth unemployment?
The advantage is, of course, that we give young people a chance. We are trying to help them to have experience for the future. Of course, the disadvantage is that sometimes we create insecurity in the minds of young people, and of course there are some bad examples. We refer to these examples in our report for the youth strategy, that employers try to substitute, for example, internships to have the internships instead of fully paid jobs, and you understand that this is not acceptable from anyone.
Okay, thank you. That's a very interesting point that will continue to be followed very closely in the European Parliament. Here's another Vox Pop question for you now on the youth issue.
Hello, my name is Christiana. I come from Austria, and please tell me about the education budget for 2011.
It is on the undersurface of the diaphragm.
In times of economic crisis, cutting education can be very tempting. So the European Parliament's rapporteur on the budget, a member of the EPP Group, thought she had an uphill battle to increase that spending.
Already in March, I proposed as the General Rapporteur some key issues, leitmotifs, if you wish, for the 2011 budget, and I frame them in a triangle of youth, mobility, education. And to my great satisfaction, and in a way to my surprise, the European Parliament's Committee on Budgets did support my priorities.
It makes sense, especially in the longer term. Supporting education is part of the EPP Group's wider focus on securing Europe's economic recovery. That in turn supports the Europe 2020 programme, a series of ambitious targets related to growth, job creation and enterprise.
It's important that we not only agree on the goals, but that we also target the money better into the goals of the 2020 strategy. And it's really a missed chance when we not already start with this in 2011.
It's all about putting Europe on track for sustainable growth by expanding all kinds of education.
Lifelong learning, which finances Erasmus program, but also the program called Youth in Action, which is linked to non-formal education through youth organization, youth movements. And also we created a pilot project called Your First EURES Job, which is a kind of Erasmus program for job seekers.
The new EU budget commits more than €2 billion for those programmes that help more than 400,000 students. That's about 1.4% of the total budget, which, though relatively small, has been growing. Youth, mobility and education, an investment in the future, the EPP Group wants to make sure the new budget doesn't shortchange, even in times as tough as these.
Georgios, the EU's education budget seems relatively minuscule. How much bigger should it be?
We want to devote 3% of the budget in innovation and research. We don't have that. We also want to support vocational training. We want to support mobility. We have lines, budget lines, but they are not as satisfactory as we would like for them to be. If we want to have a better future and get over the crisis that we deal in European level, if we want to invest in our future, we have to help young people.
A strong message there from the EPP Group that youth is a priority. Let's turn now to the sector that takes up the largest part of the EU's budget, farming.
I'm Ugo Bagnano. I came from Rome. I'm here to visit the Parliament, and I would like to know which are the proposals for reforming agricultural policies.
The EPP Group is taking a hard look at the shape of Europe's farming sector after 2013, when the EU will review its Common Agricultural Policy, or CAP. Reforming the CAP has been a divisive and controversial issue for the EU, with farmers in some countries bitterly opposed to losing some of their subsidies. At stake is nearly half the EU's budget, even though agriculture amounts to about 2% of GDP.
The Common Agricultural Policy is an important element of European unification, and if it were to be regulated nationally, then we would not need the European Union. We would again have competition distortions with enormous disadvantages for our farmers.
Consumers have an important stake in it too.
The advantage is that 500 million Europeans get access to fresh foodstuffs, that food safety is ensured. In this sense, the agricultural policy is the cheapest policy for the consumer.
Joseph Dole, EPP Group chairman, is a farmer himself and says you can't ignore the CAP's impact on worldwide farming.
Today, it is a policy to feed 500 million people. It's in that spirit that we are going to hold this debate, focusing on globalization too, on what's going on in the world.
Balancing the concerns of farmers and consumers here in Europe and around the world, all the while trying to control half the EU's budget. Not an easy task for MEPs, which is why the EPP Group aims to take the lead by talking early and often.
Georgios, how tricky is it to cut the CAP, and where do you see the money better spent?
At first, let's admit that CAP is crucial in order to support welfare for all of us. Of course, we support CAP, but on the contrary, we have to invest on research to have products with great economic results as possible, and of course to have competitiveness in the agriculture in European level.
Not an easy issue with easy answers. Georgios, thank you very much for taking the hot seat for us this time round. That's it for now on People First. To find out more about our group's activities on these and other issues, please check out our website at eppgroup.eu. Until next time, thank you for watching.